Dharmabytes is brought to you by Free Buddhist Audio, the Dharma for your life. Our work is funded entirely by donations from our generous listeners. If you would like to help us keep this free, make a contribution at freebuddhistaudio.com/donate. Thank you, and happy listening.
And yet, we know that the lay life, it is possible to practice. People tell us that, and we think, yeah, they're just telling us that because they're trying to be kind. One of the first things, when we look at practice is that, pretty much the first stage that you're trying to enter into is tranquility. In order to have access to, our Buddha nature that's kind of present, it's there, but it's buried underneath all of the conditioning. And one of the first prerequisites for that seems to be that we need tranquility, so that some of that, all that busyness, some of that fog, that ignorance that is there begins to settle, begins to calm down. And so tranquility, compassion, and then insight. So, one of the things, the lay life, a life for children, and the most difficult, the first stumbling block is tranquility. Where do you get it, actually? Certainly in the first sort of 10 years, it's pretty hard to come by. So I think, people just sort of take one look at that and, you kind of fail at the first hurdle. But you don't actually realize that beyond that, the tranquility phase of the spiritual life, in terms of the compassion and in terms of the insight, there's a huge amount that can be drawn into. So I think one of the interesting things is that we're in a time now where it is actually possible more and more for lots of different reasons, historically and socially, and how hard life used to be and how hard domestically life used to be. I think now there's a lot more, we have a lot more time really than, in the past. So I think it's different conditions now, and I think it is more possible. There's more available for us to be able to practice within our current conditions as householders, as lay people. And one of the things I find sort of intriguing about the universe and life is that there's so many different gateways in. So if you think about, like, in alternative medicine, there's iridology, and apparently in, like, the whole of the body, you can kind of read it in an eye. It's got and then, foot, the whole body, you can look at it on your foot, and then you can look at it other places. In your ear, apparently, as well. There's a whole of all the different organs, you can locate them in your ear. So it's like in any one part of your body, everything else lives. And I think my intuitive sense is that actually if you keep looking deep enough into anything, everything is there. And I think that's the same with, parenting as a spiritual practice. There's a lot that can put you off it on the surface, but if you keep looking and you keep going deep enough, there is 1,000 Dharma doors, in parenting, in that family life. The universe, if you can find the universe in a grain of sand, surely you can find it in the whole of family life. But it's hard, isn't it? It's hard. And the reason why, one of the main reasons that it's hard, is that part of practice is about trying to get a perspective, trying to get a big enough perspective on ourselves. Because we just get bogged down in thinking that we're this, and that's all we are. We have this perspective, and actually what spiritual life is trying to get us to do is trying to get us to see ourselves in a whole different perspective. And what can sometimes keep us bogged down is all the calls from, the present, and in family life, that's 100-fold the case. So part of why we go away on retreats, part of why we go away is because we're creating a gap that we can see our habits, we can see who we're being.
We hope you enjoyed today's Dharma Bite. Please help us keep this free. Make a contribution at freebuddhistaudio.com/donate. And thank you.